Hi, I'm Kili, also known as Kelly.
And I'm Feely, also known as Alex.
Welcome to our corner of the Shire,
where we will show you how to bring Middle-earth
into your daily life to keep you
a happy hobbit.
Welcome to this episode of Happy Hobbit. There is a fruit that some people have not ever heard of that grows in the eastern lands, probably towards the desert of Rune, called a quince. Now, Missy and I are fortunate enough to have a quince tree growing in our vicinity, and recently, in true Hobbit style, collected the ripe fruit. Quince is really interesting because you actually can't eat it raw, but one thing that you can do that I feel like is a very hobbity thing to do is make preserves out of it. You can make this wonderfully, beautifully red quince jelly, and you can make quince paste. There's also a type of like fruit roll-up thing you can make with quince using this same paste, but I didn't attempt that because this was my first time making quince preserves, and I felt like that was going to be too ambitious. I'm going to show you how I was able to get jar after jar after jar of quince preserves from not even a huge amount of fruit, because these quince were small. The ones that I've seen in farmers markets and that I've seen in grocery stores are usually a lot bigger, like more like this size. But this is the time of year, or we're kind of coming into the end of the time of year where you'll find them available because they really get ripe in the first frosts of autumn coming into winter. So if you'd like to try this recipe, it is seasonal, so keep your eye out and check out your local Hobbit market to see if they have some. This is one of the quince. As you can see, it's got some fuzz on the outside, and it also has some rotting bits that I'll have to cut around later. To get the fuzz off, you just rub it with a dish towel or any sort of kitchen towel like that. I don't think the fuzz is harmful, but it might mess with the texture of the jam and make more mess for you later. So you want it to look shiny and bald. So this is after I've rubbed all of them. I thought that this one was one of the most blemish-free quince, and you can really see how it looks like a cousin of an apple, but obviously is not an apple. And those are some of the bits that I will just cut around, but there's still, even this one, there's going to be still be a lot of usable fruit. So to begin, you need to cut and core your quince, and as you could tell by the amount of pressure I was applying, see, they even look kind of apple-like on the inside. But they are very hard, really hard. There, I took a little sniff of it. I didn't know what I was doing, so I took a spoon and started trying to scoop out the innards, and you can see me hesitating because I'm like, this is actually not working that well. Is this what I'm supposed to do? So I was trying to problem solve in real time and started trying to use a knife then to carve it out, but it is so hard. I would equate it to carving something like a dense turnip. It's not very giving. So it really did take some elbow grease and some pressure. But what your goal is to clean out all of these really tough parts around where the seeds are. There I am in fast motion, carving it out, kind of like carving a turnip or a little turnip jack-o'-lantern. I'm making that reference because the original jack-o'-lanterns were turnips, because pumpkins are from the New World, and so folks in ancient Britain and Ireland were actually carving turnips. So what you want to do is, again, just really clean them out. The more clean you have them, the less work you make for yourself further down the road as you continue to process these fruits. I'm really enjoying this chipmunk chatter. That's from the sped up footage. I think I was talking to my mom at the time.
Some
So there's some of the yucky bits I'm gonna have to cut around. Sometime later, I returned to the yucky little bit there. And I just sort of hacked around it. As you can tell from what the cutting board looks like, I wasn't very tidy. I wasn't very conscious of trying to be tidy. I just wanted to get the job done. So now that I had them all cored, oh yeah, I gave myself a blister. I was pushing so hard on the knife as I was chopping. That's how tough they are. How the denizens of Middle Earth ever decided to eat these things is beyond me. Here I'm just cutting them into relatively similar sizes. And the reason you want to do that is so that they cook at, roughly the same time. Otherwise, you might end up with some pieces really mushy, some pieces really hard. Yeah, there, so you gotta really work at it to get those little brown bits out. I'm assuming those are caused by insects. Then I gave them all a good wash because, again, you saw my workstation wasn't very clean. I put them in our Dutch oven and was pretty surprised to see the volume that I had. I didn't think it would be quite that much, but in retrospect, it was probably a little too much to process at once, but I managed. The next step you want to do is fill the pot with just enough water that you cover the fruits. I didn't pay super close attention, so some of the fruit started to float. It's possible I added too much water, but it all worked out okay in the end. Your next step is to put a lid on your pot and let it boil. Being the little Hobbit forager that I am, I started inspecting the seeds and trying to find ones that I hadn't chopped in half, just in case I could get one to germinate and grow my own quince tree. So I saved out a few. I haven't done anything with them yet, but I'm excited to try to get some of them to germinate. The unusable parts of the quince, all the yucky bits, went to the Dark Lord, also known as our worm bin. Look at all that yummy, yummy compost. One day, hopefully, I will get my act together and use some of that in the garden. Here you can see the water's finally starting to do something. And a bit later, it's at a nice boil. And you just cook them long enough so that the fruit gets soft. So the way that you can check it is by taking either a fork or a knife and just seeing if it punctures the flesh. That sounded really evil and gross. But you want to make sure you test the biggest chunks as well to make sure that they are cooked through. And there it is, ready to go for the next step. The recipe I was following asked for you to do everything by weight rather than volume. So here I am tearing the scale, which means I'm just subtracting the weight of the pot. Oh, I forgot to film this part. Overnight, I let the fruit sit in that colander and I let all the juice drip into that yellow bowl. That juice is what you're going to use to make the quince the quince jelly. So what I'm doing here is weighing how much juice I have, and then that's going to help me determine how much sugar to add when I actually go to make the jelly. I'm a greedy hobbit, so I'm literally trying to get every last drop. See, it weighed 50 something, probably ounces, I don't know. It was a lot. It was a lot more than I anticipated. So the ratio is you put in 2/3 of the total weight as sugar. That didn't make sense. But you take the amount of juice you have, and then you add 2/3 of the amount as sugar. I actually added a little bit less than that because as important as the sugar is for preserving the jam and preventing the growth of bacteria, I don't want to make jam that's so sweet that I can't even eat it. So hopefully mine will still turn out okay. I believe the sugar also helps activate the pectin. Quince are extraordinarily high in pectin, and pectin is a substance that makes jam gel. So it's a natural thickener, and you don't have to add any to this recipe. For other jams with other fruits, you have to add some. But one thing I did add was some citric acid. You don't have to use the powdered acid. You can use like lemon juice or other citrus juice, but this is just what I had on hand. This will help raise the acidity level, which is a safety thing when you're canning, but also it adds a teeny bit of tartness to help cut through the sweetness. But it also acts as a preservative to help preserve the color that you're going to see coming right about now. That color is your indicator that you should start checking the juice to see what consistency it's at. In the meantime, I'm preparing to make my quince paste by confronting my old nemesis, the food processor. I didn't know it then, but I had overloaded that food processor because those fruits, while still moist and smelling delicious, they were quite dry because I'd already juiced them. So as you can see, the food processor was really struggling, and I didn't film much of this process because it took a long time to actually get it all to mash, because I couldn't just add more liquid to help it, I don't know, like soften and move around in there more. So I had to just keep pausing and using a spoon to smush it, and in retrospect maybe it would have been easier to use it to like mash it by hand with a masher. This out of focus shot is me trying to show you what the liquid mixture cooling on the spoon looks like. You can see that it's starting to get, it's still runny because it's hot, but it's starting to get viscous and thick. And yeah, look at that. See, that looks okay. It looks kind of like sweet potato or something. Baby food. You wanted a baby food consistency. So I was weighing that because I'm also going to add the sugar to that to make the paste. In the meantime, I'm consistently checking this liquid by keeping the spoon in it long enough to get it hot and then seeing how viscous it is. But look at that gorgeous color. And that's what's great about the citric acid. It helps maintain that color. There you can see it's really thick. So that's getting to its gel point, its gel period. And it's ready to go into the jars. I had so much trouble filming this because I kept blocking the view of the camera as I was doing things. So bear with me here. I know it's not the most interesting thing to look at. But you want to fill up the jars so that there's just about a 1/4 inch or so of like headspace at the top. And I didn't know quite how many jars I would need, so I just guessed and kept going, because again I ended up with a lot more juice and thus jelly than I thought I would. But look at that gorgeous color. I just can't get over it. It's so pretty. And the chipmunks are back. To me that looks like Jell-O. I expect it to taste like vibrant cherry or red hot cinnamon. Before I put it in the water bath can, or indeed put the lid on, I'm taking a wet paper towel and I'm just making sure the edges where the lid will be threaded are clean, because if something disrupts that seal, then bacteria could potentially get in. So I did that for all of the jars. And then you place on the lid and make sure it's centered. And then you add the ring and you screw it on just so it's finger tight. You're not trying to make it super tight because you want room for air bubbles to sneak out if they need to during the water bath canning.
These are not the official instrument. These are just some tongs I had. There's actual, like, jam can holding things, but I didn't feel like digging those out in the garage, so I just used what I had. Now you want the water to be about an inch above the can, but once I added all of the jars, it raised the water level so that it was at the appropriate level. And you cook them in the boiling water. Oh yeah, see, look at how much that set up as it cooled. You cook them in the boiling water for 10 minutes, and that's enough to sterilize them. Then you very carefully take them out, set them on a dish towel, and allow them to cool for about 24 hours. And you will hear little metallic pops. That's the button on the lid being sucked in, and that's how you know it's formed a proper seal. Aren't they just so cute? They look like they're ready for a little Hobbit picnic. I like these sizes too because you can store them in the fridge and they don't take up too much room. Okay, I'm back to my paste. I'm back to weighing them, and I think what had happened earlier was I realized I needed the pot that I was already using for the jelly. So here I am with this massive amount of fruit pulp. Again, in retrospect, that was a lot to try to deal with at the same time. So once I got that weight, I figured out the right amount of sugar, added it, and it was fascinating to see how difficult this mixture was to blend and stir. Because it just is so thick and relatively dry. As it started heating up and the sugar started melting and some of the liquids started coming out of the mash again, it got a little bit easier. And the recipe I was following just said to stay at the stove, continuously stirring it until it came to that beautiful red color again. I don't know how long that took the woman who made the recipe I was following. I was easily standing there for a half hour, if not longer, constantly stirring. And you're trying to keep it from getting scorched, but I failed. Some of it did get scorched at the bottom of the pan. Here it is, getting thicker, bubbling away. And you can kind of tell how much... Oh yeah, my mom was helping me make cinnamon rolls at the same time. But you can kind of see how it's pulling away from the sides of the pan. That's how thick it's getting. And it was getting more and more difficult to stir. I got my workout that day. So you can definitely tell it's scorched the bottom of the pan. But it's done because it's got that beautiful reddish brown color. Yeah, it got really thick. I mean, there's a chance I overdid it, but oh well. It's really messy to try to get into the jars because it is so thick. I mean, it is a paste. I have not personally sampled this with a lot of different types of food, but I've heard that it's really good with cheese. It's really good as like a spread to put on crackers. I imagine you could put it on just about anything that needs a touch of a light fruity flavor and some sweetness. So here's all the jars. There are some air bubbles in them. It was really hard to mash them down enough because it was thickening as it cooled. So you want to clean the lids and the rims again as you prepare them for a water bath as well. They're going to go swimming in the hot lava of Mount Doom. Or just sit there and make creepy rattling sounds as they bump against each other. So I can't remember if this is before or after the water bath, because I didn't film the water bath twice. There you can see that it's not denting it at all, so that little button has been sucked down. So these are all properly sealed. And if you ever want to check them after to see if they're safe, always check to make sure that little button's still down. So this mash here, you may have seen earlier there was another, a Ziploc bag full of frozen quince on the counter. Those were ones that I harvested 2 years ago. Didn't know how to prepare them. I skinned them and poached them, and they turned that cute pink color. And then I just stuck them in the freezer. I think my family and I ate a few of them and then kept the rest in the freezer because I was like, well, I'll figure out how to process this later. They turned out really beautifully because they had a little bit more moisture and they blended in the food processor really well. And as you could see, using a smaller volume like this really made a big difference. I was able to get it to that red color with, I mean, there was some scorching in the bottom of the pan, but not nearly as bad as it was in the other batch. And it also didn't take as long. In a lot of traditional recipes from the East, you add rose water or you can add cardamom. I didn't have any of that, so I cut some cinnamon sticks in half and stuck them in the jars because, as you saw, we were also making cinnamon rolls at the same time, and I kept smelling the cinnamon thinking, that would taste really good with this. So that was my experiment. And just to be extra safe, I let the cinnamon sticks sit in boiling water for several minutes before I stuck them in the jars. See, it's not even as viscous and thick as the other batch. Be really curious to see what the difference is in not only their flavor, but their consistency. So here's the 3, made with the several-year-old quince. And they're all hanging out overnight. That's a ridiculous amount of canned goods. Just from like an armload of fruit.
I have not tried the quince jelly yet, but I have tried the quince paste. I sampled some as it was cooking, and it has a delicious, delicate flavor. Yeah, it tastes like kind of like pear and apple with a light hint of rose. And of course, the aftertaste is sweet because you do have to put a lot of sugar into preserves. It's great with cheese, it's great with crackers, it's a great all-around accompaniment to a lot of things. So, I hope this has inspired you. These would make great Christmas or Yule or Hanukkah gifts or anything throughout the wintertide season to bring that burst of fruit and of summer sunshine to your palate. So I hope you've enjoyed watching, and please, if you have, make sure you've subscribed to our channel and that you've liked the video, and we always love it when you leave a comment and or share it with a friend because it helps us and our little Hobbit hole continue to be able to bring Happy Hobbit to you. I don't say I'm wearing my squatching through the snow shirt, but I'm not supposed to say Merry Christmas yet, because this isn't our Christmas episode. I'm so boring that she's falling asleep. Oh, Missy Muffin. Everyone's gonna see our closet, but that's okay, huh? Welcome to this episode of Happy Hobbit. But yes, I'm gonna show you how... Whoa, look at my eye. I know that was weird. I know it's so weird. I really want to go eat some because I'm hungry.